Hey you guys, before we get started, I just wanted to quickly mention that if you're new to gouache and you're not quite sure what it is or what supplies you need or how to use it, then make sure you go and enroll in my free course, Get Started with Gouache. This course covers the exact supplies you'll need to get started, basic brush techniques, colour mixing and lots more. It's the ultimate guide to gouache painting for beginners. It's free to enroll, so click the link below this video, enroll now so you can get a handle on the basics before you dive into this tutorial about using layers. In this tutorial, I'll be sharing some tips and techniques for painting bold, opaque layers using gouache. The key thing to remember when it comes to painting layers is that gouache paint reactivates when you add water. So this means that the amount of water you use for each layer is really important. So let's get started with these strawberries. The first thing I'm going to do is make a coloured background to paint the strawberries on. So I can show you how to add the bright opaque strawberries over the top of it in the next layer. Now with the first layer of gouache that you put down on the page, the consistency of the gouache is not quite so critical. You'll likely want to cover a really large surface area quickly, so the more water that you mix into the gouache, the easier this will be. So I'm using this lovely pink colour here. I've mixed it with some red, white and a little tiny bit of yellow just to warm the colour up a tiny bit. So I'm going to mix in a little more water here just to get the paint a really nice spreadable consistency. And I'm just going to paint a rough circular, maybe even an oval shape. You can paint whatever shape background you like, it doesn't matter. Just going to use a little more water just so the paint is nice and easy to spread. Fill in this oval. Now I have a nice opaque background. I just need to leave it dry completely before I try to add a new layer. Otherwise, if I try and add the strawberries on top of this layer while it's wet, all of the colours will end up blending together. Now that my background layer is nice and dry, I can go ahead and paint the first layer of the strawberries. Now you'll notice I'm not sketching out my strawberries first, but if you know you'll be more confident if you have an outline to work with, then go ahead and lightly sketch the outlines. So with this layer, it's really important that the red paint for the strawberries is nice and thick. When I'm painting in layers like this, I always use paint straight from the tube for any layers above the background layer. If you use paint that's been sitting dry on your palette, it will be too watery when you reactivate it, and so that means it'll blend with the bottom layers of paint. So you just want to add a tiny little bit of water into this layer to loosen the paint up a little bit. It needs to be a thick, creamy consistency. Strawberries are a really loose kind of heart shape, so I'm just going to roughly paint a strawberry shaped outline and then fill it in. You'll need to work quickly and confidently with this layer. If you brush back and forth over an area, the colour of the underlayer will start to mix with your current colour. So if you're wanting to make a layer of opaque flat colour, then it's best not to overwork the layer. Now while the strawberry layer dries a little, I'm going to come in and add some leaves to the top of the strawberries. So I'm just going to add a little bit of fresh green paint to my already dry palette and then spray the entire palette with water just to loosen the paint up, because I don't mind if all the greens run together a little bit here. That's what keeps things interesting. So I'm going to put down some dark coloured leaves first and then come back in with a little bit of lighter green paint, maybe a little bit of white, and add some highlights. Now because the top of the strawberries is a little bit wet still, I'm just being really careful to make sure the green paint that I'm using is really quite thick so that it's not mixing with the wet strawberry layer. So you can see here I've done the big strawberry a little bit close to the edge of my pink oval, so I'm just going to take my pink background colour, which is still wet enough on my palette, and I'm just going to extend the oval a little bit just so the strawberries are scented and the composition is a little bit more pleasing. So now I'm going back to the strawberry layer because it's pretty much dry. And I just want to paint in a little bit of a highlight. So I don't want this layer to be completely opaque. I want it to blend a little with the red layer. So I'm not too worried about the amount of water I use. I just want to make sure the paint is a really nice consistency. I'm going to go in and add in a little bit of a white highlight here. You can see how that bottom red layer is already mixing with the white paint. So then I just cleaned my brush off and picked up a little water. Just going to go in here and reactivate the first red layer I did a little, at the same time as I'm blending a little of the white paint into it. So this will create some nice pink midtones, which will give the strawberry a little more depth and interest. Now that the leaves of the strawberry are dry, I can go back in and add some finer details. Maybe outline them a little bit and add a few more highlights. The last thing I need to do is add in some little seeds. So I'm going to just take a small brush and mix a tiny bit of yellow into some white and just make lots of little seed-like dots all over the strawberries. So there are my finished strawberries. Now I've showed you a couple of different techniques for making layers when you're painting with gouache. If you're going for those layers of bold, flat, opaque colours, here are my top 3 tips. Number 1. Make sure each layer is completely dry before you start a new layer. Number 2. Make sure you use paint straight from the tube instead of reactivating dry paint. And 3. Don't add too much water. Work quickly and try not to reactivate the layer below. I really hope you enjoyed this strawberry tutorial. Let me know in the comments below, and remember, if you're new to gouache, make sure you go and enroll in Get Started with Gouache so you can start using gouache with confidence.